Hey, what's up, everybody? Gonna do a classic rock reaction, man. This is Robert Plant. Robert Plant in his solo years. And what I've got for you here today, it's a combination reaction featuring a triple shot in the front end. And then on the back end of that, there's a 30-minute interview with Charlie Rose in 2005. So yeah, looking forward to this period, man. I recently saw little bits of some concert footage, I think it was, in passing that sounded really interesting. So I wanted to check into it a little bit further. And so I have this lady to thank, Evelyn. Now Evelyn's kind of given us kind of like a rundown intro, so I'm going to just read what she's got here. She says, this is the period of Robert Plant with strange sensations. The period where he went to Mali and really dove into African rhythms and scales. It's one of my favorite collaborations he's done. The first clip is the one you liked, Shine It All Around. The second is a live clip supposedly from December 7th, 2007, which is suspect since the O2 was December 10th, if I recall, and Robert was certainly in rehearsal at that point with Led Zeppelin. He has also begun his collaboration with Alison Krauss. He was a very busy guy that year. This song is called The Enchanter, and it really highlights the world music vibe that Plant has always loved. The third song is very biographical. The lyrics speak to the decisions Robert was making at that time about his career and the direction he was taking his music, with a bit of a dig at some of his peers. And about the interview, this is a great interview, talks about so many of the old bluesmen and his love of Morocco's music and how this album brings them together. It's revealing because he speaks of losing his creative spark around 2000 and how Jimmy Page and his journey to North Africa rekindled it. Right on. Very, very interesting part of Robert's life. So let's get into it, man. Sorry for the long-ass interview, or long-ass overview and intro. I know that some people just like to hear me say hello and let's get into it, but I'm sorry, my reaction efforts, it's always about context first. So let's do this, man. Triple shot back to back with Robert Plant, and then the interview. So this is starting with the strange sensation, Shine It All Around. Let's get it. It looks nice and chill. Cheers.
This is the land where I live, painted all over gold. Take a little sunshine, spread it all around. This is the love that I give, and these are the arms for the holding. Turn on your love light, shine it all around. Whoa, turn on your love light all around.
Gonna get busy, brother.
These are the times of my life, bright and strong and golden. And this is the way that I choose when the deal goes down. And this is the world that I love, I paint it all over trouble. Take
just getting a real treat here now.
Make a little breakdown all around.
You know what I gotta stop doing? I gotta stop imagining what this song would sound like in the hands of Led Zeppelin, with the thunder kicking in and shit. I love it for what it is, but I gotta tell my mind to stop doing that shit. Does that happen with you too? Let me know. That was excellent. They're having fun, they're loose, they're chilling, they're doing circles and spinning around.
Say it again! Oh yeah!
It's quite a treat, man. Wherever they are, they're...
Oh yeah!
Very good. Okay. So this is the Enchanter. 2007 Exit Festival.
On guitar, Justin Adams. On drums, Clive Deemer. On bass, Billy Fuller. Keyboards, Johnny Baggett. Guitar, Skin. We are Strange
Skin.
Sensation. And we've come a long way.
Speaking of long, this is a long ass song, man. 10 minutes. $11 minutes. You're lucky I didn't check, Evelyn. I would have done it anyway. I dig you, man.
She moves through the mountains and down to the sea. She sings in celebration with her piper for me. She's leading the man who's beating the drum. Love is all around her on the road to the sun. Round and round, moving me round. Round, round, yeah.
Evelyn, you're saying this was at the time of the O2 when he was in rehearsal with Led Zeppelin? You know, I got a question for you guys later about the O2.
She's lost in translation with the birds of the air. She's trading information in a world without fear. She's mixing my emotions. She's mixing my emotions. She's mixing my...
Holy cow.
It's so easily done.
You can still hold a note.
I'm in league with the enchanter on the road to the sun. Round, round, moving me round, 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 yeah. Oh, but the stars will light my way.
Doesn't it have an Odyssey cashmere kind of feel to it, this song?
See my touch dance the air, sway.
And again, I gotta stop that comparison thing.
Studying the planets and she's searching for signs. Her eyes promise mystery and her treasure to find. She's mixing my emotions. It's so easily done. I'm in league with the enchanter on the road to the sun. Yeah. Oh, but the stars will light my way. Oh, see my times dancing, heaven sway. Yes, it's so very easily done. She moves through the mountains and down to the sea. She sings in celebration with her piper for me. She's leading the man who's beating the drum. And love is all around her, love is all around her, love is all around her, love, love, love,
I imagine he's attracted like younger fans first who didn't realize he fronted Led Zeppelin, only to realize later and then said to themselves, okay, that makes sense, you know? It must have been a really, really cool discovery. Let me know if you're one of those. This is good though, this whole structure that it's got going on. How spread out it is. All the different sounds. That was cool. I was getting some Bonham vibes there at the end. Nice. I gotta stop pulling Led Zeppelin into his reactions, man. This is Robert Plant. Alright. Tin Pan Valley, live.
Conversation filled with 20th century cool. My peers may flirt with cabaret, some fake that rebel yell. Me, I'm moving up to higher ground, I must escape their hell. Christian women, all stain of spotless wives. A perfect destination inside a perfect world. I take the Bible to the baby, you take the hammer to the pearl. Like this. Like this. Yeah, 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 yeah. Like this.
Evelyn, I can see why this is your favorite Robert Plant time period.
Every day's like Sunday down here on memory lane. Salad days and no good ways and drive me quite insane. Cocktail clouded troubadour attempts to speak in tongues. He said enough, I'm through the door. I'm moving right along, long, long, long. Life is like it. Like this. Like this. Oh yeah. Like this.
See that shit? I can't help myself, you know.
Just loaded with understatement.
Excellent. Amen.
Robert Plant is here. He was Led Zeppelin's lead singer, the golden god of rock and
Here's
roll.
the interview.
Here is a look at some of his work. Mighty Rearranger is his 8th album, and by all accounts, this is his best solo effort to date. The Delta blues, third world rhythms, and just enough of that famous voice to satisfy the Zeppelin fans. I'm pleased to have Robert Plant at this table for the very first time. Welcome.
Thank you, Charlie.
Great to see you. London is still home. I mean, England is still home.
England, yeah.
You live in the country, you live...
I've always lived in the middle of England, a little west of the centre, towards the Welsh borders.
Yeah. And American music, though, rhythm and blues, was an influential for you from early...
Well, yeah, I think there was a huge movement towards black Americana in the British pop scene. I was just perhaps 2 or 3 years behind the Rolling Stones and the Pretty Things, and there was an amazing sort of the impulse on the ground, listening to black rhythm and blues. In your cities, you had music from New Orleans, Philadelphia, Chicago. So many different cities had so much absolutely different music to offer us. And I never realized.
But you knew you loved the sound.
Yeah, I was absolutely infatuated.
Spoke to you, and the voices spoke to you.
Well, there's a kind of saccharine sweet thing about British pop music. It was somewhere between Johnny Ray and Pat Boone. It was something that was happening.
Yeah, all right.
And with Presley mimicking the black voice and bringing a little lift of black music into the mainstream, that was the sort of hors d'oeuvre. And then a little later on, you got all these black American bands who started to permeate.
Yeah. And did Presley influence everybody over there in the 50s?
I would say so, because he was totally unique. I mean, he took a lot of the sort of elements of the Johnny Ray approach, the kind of sobbing voice and that sort of thing. But he mixed it with the music that he was surrounded by when he was a kid in Memphis,
If you listened to Presley and didn't know anything about it, would you know it was a white voice?
I think on some of the very early songs I wouldn't have known. No.
Wouldn't have known?
No. The stuff which he was taking, the Arthur Crudup music, the That's All Right Mama, Mystery Train, which was Junior Parker's Blue Flames. I mean, the whole deal of Presley was that he was the original hepcat, And what we got on the radio in England, it cut through all the drizzle. And it really gave us something that everybody's heads turned. And our parents, as you can imagine, the same thing in America, rejected it wholeheartedly. They saw something coming around the corner they couldn't understand, and I guess
that's what it was about, them not understanding.
I think our call to arms, and and the black music that followed it that we managed to get. I mean, there were ports like Liverpool and London where you had merchant seamen landing off boats from the States who bring records, 45s. Yeah. That's why the Beatles were so hip to a lot of the black soul music of the early 60s.
Because it poured into Liverpool, and so they heard it.
Yeah, sure.
See, I never knew that. It was port cities that it first began to resonate.
Off the boats,
Very
yeah.
interesting.
Let me talk about this album and come back to some of this stuff. Mighty Rearranger. What is that? Why that title? Because
there is a song. I had a block. I had an entire lyrical block. I thought I'd reached the age that I had nothing left to say. I was a comfortable guy. I've got my life, my children, my grandchildren. Everything is set, and I felt that maybe my whole persona, or maybe it was a little bit obsolete. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, I was armed with all this detail. And Mighty Rearranger is one of the songs that relates, I think, to the passing of time and the way that fate deals its hand.
Yeah.
So basically, Mighty Rearranger, I guess, is fate, chance.
All right, let me talk about some of the things.
Creative
You
pitch.
called it recently a group of statements from a guy who didn't think he had anything left to say.
That's right.
Which is what you just said.
Exactly that, yeah.
All of a sudden you had something you wanted to say?
I think that the musicians that surround this project come from such a variety of backgrounds that the sort of melange of the whole lot put together was so sparkling, it was so vibrant that I dived into it. I found a new personality within it all, and I found a kind of honesty, and it was almost like a key to open up my old gift, you know.
The voice?
The voice and the ability to create something that goes with 3 minutes 40 seconds of music that is substantial enough for a person at my time of life.
Is 3 minutes 40 seconds the magic time?
I guess it's becoming the magic
under
time.
four or under four.
But these songs came in like that accidentally. You make your point and you've gone. Some of the greatest songs in the history of popular music are under 3 minutes, you know. And I never, in Led Zeppelin,
My generation.
our songs were deliberate. They were extended
Right.
musical pieces. Sometimes they went on for 7 or 8 minutes. And live, you know, you could take a short course in sort of Serbo-Croat on the side of the stage while it was going on.
I know.
No, you know that.
Yeah. Have you found, I mean, what's interesting about you is that it seems to me that you have been able to incorporate within your sense of who you are that I, in fact, was the lead singer for Led Zeppelin, and therefore people want to at least stay connected to that. Whatever else I may do, they want to hear that, they want to talk about that, but they also want
also
me
shades of it.
to maintain that memory and that connection
I guess
with
so.
where I came from.
I would say so. And I think that if there is any memory at all from that period, then the people who, if there's any memory left at all, people would know that the beauty of that particular period of music and Led Zeppelin's contribution was that we continually changed, that our music digressed due to visitations that Jimmy Page and I made to North Africa, to India, to Thailand.
Because you were exposed to new ideas in music and you incorporated
Constantly, yeah. And it wasn't about some kind of Tin Pan Alley moment of keeping the thing going. Repetition at all costs, just to remind the listener. The variety and the constant change was the thing that gave us our strength. And that's what I've tried to do since the demise of Led Zeppelin.
Now, I'm going to talk about some of the things that are in here, including Brother Ray. But are the things that it has this solo career, is it as satisfying to you, because it comes at a different time in your life, as Led Zeppelin was at that time?
Well, as you say, it's a different time in my life.
Because you can't compare one to the other. But
and because of that, I'm much more hip to the way it works now. In Led Zeppelin, I was 20 years old, and I was rolling with this kind of momentum, which it just had no end. And the amount of conjecture that surrounded the group and the sort of myth is way, way off course. But it had its own kind of speed and tempo. Since then, I've travelled extensively in southern Morocco and in West Africa, and I found
you love Morocco.
I love it.
No, we'll come.
Yeah, but it's a new place to go in my heart and in my soul. And I've learned that the variety that was the strength of Led Zeppelin has to be my kind of standard that I carry through the rest of my career.
Could there be anything better than being a 20-year-old lead singer for one of the great rock and roll bands in the history of rock and roll?
Well, it was a very, very disquieting time, because the momentum and the growth of the success took us to places in stature and in attention and in not power, but the public went for this thing, which was reviled by Rolling Stone, which was ignored by the media and
Rolling Stone, the magazine.
Yeah,
right
at the time. Jan Wenner will remember this well, and
he reviled Led Zeppelin.
The whole process of an English group coming along and just, you know, the sort of carousel across the States was amazing, because venues weren't like they are today. There weren't that many big venues. I mean, the Garden, I don't know whether that was used at that
but
time.
Fillmore, you could go to Fillmore.
The Fillmore was the place, I guess.
Right.
And that was 2,000 seats, I guess. So the Beatles had played Shea Stadium, but with the equipment and the sort of inferior technology at the time, you know, as you know if you see a clip, it was a mass of screaming girls.
Right.
Well, we had a lot of guys in the audience, which was a bit of a letdown in a way. But
Why was that, you think?
I think the music, the actual stature of the music, it's a very masculine musical form.
I like that.
I think the power of the guitar
I would like to hear screaming fangirls.
and the percussive elements of the music were quite masculine. And I think that the momentum of the thing, it had quite a momentum. And it took a 20-year-old singer into a world that, you know, it just gambled, constantly developing more and more. And we didn't really ever take stock of it, probably until about 5 years in. And then we began
Took
to...
stock of who you were and what was happening around
well,
you
who
and
we
what you were
were,
doing.
we were conscientious, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Kids sitting on the side of the hill trying to write songs that had some substance. That's what it was, with young families, with hopes, and, you know, I mean, far different to how you and I are now.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we've gone through all these changes. So for me to be a musician and you to be a raconteur, to get to where we are, we have had to go through all those sort of things.
Exactly right. You couldn't be here without having gone there.
So I think that where this takes me now is a really fantastic place, because it's at my own tempo, more or less.
Is the voice significantly different, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Mellow, wiser, more what?
Well, I hear remonstrations. I hear the sort of character of my voice in the very early days. And I think I was overtly concerned with filling in gaps in instrumental sections. I found myself, you know, I thought I didn't know whether to do a card trick or take a rabbit out of a hat. Or there was a lot of times when I preening around, you know, flicking my hair like, you know,
Right. I remember.
Was just a little bit lacking. So I did overcompensate in those days.
Did you watch anybody? Did anybody instruct you?
No, I listened. I listened.
Listen to the music.
I listened to the music. I did have a good, kind of fairy godmother for a while in the United States in the form of Janis Joplin.
Really?
Yeah, because we played a lot of those festivals back then with the Doors and the Jefferson Airplane. In those fantastic times when the youth culture actually had it thought it had a responsibility to help to change society and remove corruption, if you can believe that. And that whole movement, I was so infatuated by the idea of Americana taking a very sharp turn to the left. And in the middle of it all, there was this wonderful, vulnerable little bird, Janis Joplin, who used to look after me and say, hey, you know, drink this, you got to keep quiet in between the shows, do this, do that.
She had that kind of influence?
She was really quite amazing, yeah, because she didn't do that for herself.
Exactly, I was going to say. I mean,
but for me, she said, no, come on, cool it, you know.
Yeah. Now, why was that? Was she had this thing for you, or what?
Well, if there was a thing, I can't remember it, but that would be quite per se, I suppose. But no, she was just kind, and she knew I was quite naive, and I was so in love with the whole idea of this great movement of energy and artistry and hope.
Yeah.
That and she was
creative bug in the air.
For all intents and purposes, you would have said that she was the queen of the whole movement.
60s was the greatest decade?
Well, for me,
creativity,
it was,
Because you had hope, because you believed everything was going to change, because you believed there was a force, you know, in music and civil rights and in literature and everything.
And there was much more. I think maybe there was more responsibility, or whether it was known or thought of as considered to be a responsibility. But I think that music played a bigger part, much bigger part, in the whole sort of development and of awareness at that time. Absolutely. And I think now we're in a hugely, much more of a spread of music, which is coming at us from every single angle. And maybe part of the beauty and the mystique of music and the musician and the muse itself has gone, because we're all there now, trying to get on your show, or trying to, the Stones played on the Upper West Side on the balcony of some place, Lincoln Center or whatever it was, to announce a tour. I mean, you never did that sort of thing in those days. The whole thing had its own legs.
What countries have influenced you? I mean, I know you love Morocco. Why Morocco?
Well, many years ago I went on a vacation with my wife, and it's 3 hours from the United Kingdom to Marrakesh, and it's 3,000 years behind, sideways, or it's 3 years ahead. Every street and every alley in the Medina has got ambition, and it's forward thinking, or you turn to the side. It's fantastic. It's the most amazing melange again of so many fantastic ideas, and so much artistry and music and clamour and humour and kindness, and much maligned and hardly understood by a lot of English people but it's now becoming, I suppose, quite chic and shishi to get off to Marrakesh. But you go over the Atlas Mountains and into the sort of pre-Sahara, and you leave the kind of Arab world entirely behind, and you go into the world of the Berber, the people who were there in the beginning, and it's just a phenomenally warm experience, and I'm very pleased to have found that, in the middle of all the chaos and all the years and all that stuff.
How long do you stay there when you go?
Maybe a month.
Morocco.
Or maybe a week.
That's where Robert first ran
You
into
go in the spring.
Lee
spring
Rush.
is the best time.
That's what I hear.
Met Rush.
Tell me about some of the songs here. Just stop me when you want to talk about any of them. Another Tribe, Shine It All Around.
Well, Another Tribe is the opening title. It's I'm asking the question, how can the meek inherit all the earth when we are absolutely bombarded from left, right and centre, from the chaos and the sort of the effects of greed and I suppose suspicion. And
Suspicion.
Yeah, between the lack of trust between peoples and races and religions and so on.
Comes a lot of it out of fear and insecurity.
Yeah.
Shine It All Around.
Shine It All Around is a song that's been quite big on the radio here and in the United Kingdom, and actually I found out today we're #1 in Malta thanks to that.
In Malta?
Yeah.
Now, how did that happen?
I heard a giggle in the background.
Yeah, I did too, in the green room. Somebody's thrilled.
How did that
you're
happen?
#1 in Malta.
I think I've got a family out there.
Yeah, all right, something like that. Okay, Freedom Fries is the 9/11 song.
Well, I think that it's not so much 9/11. That would be far too vague. It's the fact that Blair has made decisions on behalf of, in a democracy, on behalf of people, and he's now being called to answer for them. In the general election last week, the huge majority that the Labour Party, the new Labour Party, had has reduced to such a degree that now they're...
It's got 61 seats, I think.
Which is great,
Majority,
and normally, but I mean...
Much more than Thatcher or John
exactly
Major
that,
had.
yeah. But the thing is, the climate in Britain, there's no trust.
For him.
And everybody wants to know where the truth has
Tony
been,
Blair.
and how all these smoke screens have appeared, and nobody knows what to do. The electorate on that day, everybody was saying to each other, well, the Conservative guy, we don't trust him.
Right.
The Liberal Democrat, he's a good guy, but we don't know what they've got to offer.
Right.
And Blair, he's a statesman, but people are beginning to think that he's ridden roughshod over the national
well, there are articles
opinion.
coming out now that the Labour is in revolt against him in part and wanting him to designate a time that he's going to leave
Exactly
and make
that.
it sooner rather than later.
And if Gordon Brown isn't the natural successor, then there could be chaos within the party. But the backbenches now...
I mean, Gordon Brown, I would assume he is going to be the successor, wouldn't you?
I would think so, yeah.
Because they campaigned side by side.
Yeah.
Probably if he hadn't done that, he would not have done nearly as well.
But if you think about it, the whole twist of this is that the infighting that has been there within the party and between Brown and Blair has been quite something. And what you would loosely call the sort of spin doctors and the machinery that's been used to give the British public an idea in advance, which has been manipulated by Blair for such a long time, is now turning on him. So the headlines in the Sunday paper, and these are broadsheets that are, quite cerebral, are just saying, that finally the mechanism that he's created and nurtured is now saying enough.
You mean the spin machine?
Yeah.
All of
and
that.
And the guys who are putting the strings behind this machine,
birds,
now they're feeding it into the media, and it's working against him rather than for him.
But did you as a citizen, did you vote? No.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, did you feel like you had any alternative? I mean, because on balance, you did.
Yeah.
You felt you had alternative.
Well, there were two elections running side by side. There was a local election depending upon which area of the country you're in, and there are independent, MPs, members of Parliament, who do actually and are proactive within the communities. Number one, and on a national level, there's only so many grey areas that you can take before you have to just use your vote to reduce a majority.
Yeah. Now, early on, I mean, I think this is true, you kind of combined sort of the soul of rhythm and blues, which you heard in Memphis and in the Delta, with something coming out of sort of West Coast psychedelic.
Yeah.
And fused them together.
I tried.
The lyrics came from
sometimes
San Francisco and from...
Yeah, well, it was that era that we were talking about, that generation of good intent.
Yeah.
And I mean, my lyrics were always... I never really had a great deal of self-esteem, I suppose, about it, but occasionally it worked. And the rest of the time, it syncopated some pretty hot music.
You may not want to do this, but I beg you to do it for me. Tell me what your 10 favorite rock and roll songs are.
Wow.
Just what comes off the top of your head.
Okay, Big Hunk of Love, Elvis Presley.
Big Hunk of Love?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Big Hunk of Love came just before he went in the Army, 1958.
Yeah.
Fantastic song. I think I would have to say Smokestack Lightning by Howlin' Wolf.
Yeah.
It's not really rock and roll, but it was the basis of a lot. So much beautiful, extravagant music. And we hammed it up, trying to get as black as we could. And as they say in England, a miss is as good as a mile. But occasionally we got there, I think you got. It's all American for me.
Yeah.
I think the Rumble by Link Ray
Yeah.
And the Raymen was a big instrumental. I think Dion, who was from New York, had some fantastic music. He had a song called Lovers Who Wander, which was on whatever label it was. If I go to the West Coast, there were a lot of bands out there. I think Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit was really strong.
Did you know Gracie?
No.
You never knew Gracie?
No, no.
Yeah. What else comes to mind?
There was a group from California, from L.A. called Love, with Arthur Lee. And he made us an album called Forever Changes. And there was a song called A House Is Not a Motel.
I was fascinated by this. I'm not sure if this is a selection. If I'd asked Rolling Stone magazine to commission me and tell me what the 10 biggest rock and roll songs of all time were, they would have 10 others.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Dylan would be number one, probably.
Well, Dylan's got to be One More Cup of Coffee, I think.
For you?
Yeah, from Dylan. I think it's such a fantastic song. You asked me, I forget, how can I forget about Dylan's contribution when he was the guy who woke us all up?
My dad
He took the sort of...
Because the lyrics were authentic, or...?
There was a reactionary musical scene on the college circuits with Ramblin' Jack Elliott, Woody Guthrie, Odetta, Dave Van Ronk, all those people who were around, but Dylan made it sexy, and he also brought it home in such a vital way. Can you imagine that great... there's a great thing on Broadway now, Hairspray, and the thing is that the great end to that program, that great moment, is that after all the rock and roll and the Philadelphia sound with the Orlons and Cameo Parkway, Bobby Rydell, all that stuff, suddenly you cut to a room and there's a guy sitting there playing an acoustic guitar singing the first protest song, and that's the end of the show, because it's the end of the era of the schmooze and the schmaltz, and it's the beginning of that sort of reflective social conscience. So Dylan, you're right. Yeah, he sang some songs. I don't know how he actually survived the way that he sang about the lynchings in Oxford, Mississippi, and
he's got a charm.
He was a true poet.
Yeah, he wouldn't like anybody to say that.
I know. Why not? Just because he doesn't believe.
He's being awkward.
That's what I think.
Exactly.
What are you proudest about from I want to get to today, but from Led Zeppelin. How so?
I think the variety of music and the constant
he was going to say variety.
intention to stimulate ourselves rather than going after the kind of the beautiful underbelly full of greenbacks. I think that was the thing about the band, was that we went off places that I suppose now, with the history of the band becoming part of the kind of American pop culture, people see it now as an established entity.
Yeah.
But at the time, every turn that we made was, well, it wasn't even risky because it didn't matter. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, you shouldn't be there, you know. So I think it was the perseverance for change and to stimulate ourselves rather than, you know, to join the cut and thrust of an era. And maybe that's why it retains its popularity, because it is such a variety of music.
Bonham's death. You still feel the pain of that?
Well, you know, it's American TV. I mean, the pain, I've felt pain through my life, you know. And his passing was just a waste. You know, it's 25 years in September since he passed away.
He was 30.
He was 32.
32. 25 years.
Yeah. I know. So that was the end of everything, really, as far as our kind of combination as a four-piece band. There was no real, because everybody's contribution was so critical for the thing to make sense. You know, there was no point in going anywhere else and drafting anybody else in. You know, it's okay to redress and enjoy the music individually, but to actually call a group Led Zeppelin without his power would be folly, really. But it's not pain now. It's just
no. It's a wrong. I didn't phrase the question well, but I mean, the idea was that you don't forget something
vacuum,
like that because
exactly.
it's such central to your life.
And it's a vacuum, and probably most importantly, above all things, is that he and I started playing together when we were 15.
Yeah, I know.
And we were so obnoxious in the town that we lived, or where we worked a lot, that people would see the two of us coming down the street and they'd cross the road to avoid us.
Is that right?
Because we were so busy telling everybody how good we were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
We said we could clear a room very quickly.
Wow. Yeah, just by telling them how good you were.
Exactly, yeah. And
probably
trying
to show them.
No, not even showing them, just pursuing it for a couple of hours.
Yeah, oh, that's great. Yeah. And today, this album.
Yeah. This album is a place that I could never have believed that I could have found. Quite honestly, it's an absolute moment for me in all my life of trying to be creative, because the whole thing works. The combination of music, lyric, vocal, and the intention of each song. There's no slack. There's nothing to do with trying to join the big time again, trying to get back into some kind of groove. Right. You know, it's just about being in the right place again after a long time of considering and trying, and you know.
What's the right place?
Symmetry. Some kind of cohesive state where music and lyric and the whole lot comes together, and it's a sort of, it's not a compromise on any level at all. You know,
reconnected.
You can't sing songs about love at 56 years old and without really scrutinizing how you actually deliver this, because you've been around a while, you know, so it's a good place to be. I'm very pleased to be there.
Good for you. I should mention two people. One is Ahmet Ertegun. Mm-hmm. You were on Atlantic Records.
Yeah.
The Rolls Royce.
Exactly
of
that.
Recording.
Well, you know, John Bonham and I were very green. We were very young. We were 19 when we actually began rehearsing with what was to become Led Zeppelin. Wow. And when our management and Jimmy Page came to New York, they saw several different, you know,
I've got allergies.
Record companies, and ultimately the tapes and the deal was done with Atlantic. And when they came back and said, you know, that we were now going to be Atlantic artists, I think I cried. Because, never mind the Stax period and that sort of thing, it's just the whole idea of Ahmet and Jerry and Arif and all the whole deal of... I mean, to have Phil Spector as a house producer on all those early Drifters, well, not early 60s Drifters records, and all that fantastic sound. You know, when you become an obsessive musical character, you start quoting B-sides and matrix numbers of vinyl, and you can do... It's an insane place to be. My girlfriend, when I go past a shop that's got some serious vinyl, she just looks at me and says, shoes. And goes. But so if I go back to then, the idea of being on a label that had Clyde McPhatter and the Drifters, and
and Brother Ray,
yeah, what a guy.
the last cut here.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see Ray Charles when he came to England in I think it was 1960, after What I Say came out. I was 12 years old then, and I was too young to go and see him, just too young. But I've seen him a few times since then. And he went in through the kind of modern sounds in country and western. He got sweet, he had an orchestra, but sometimes he really let it go again. And those sounds that he did with Ahmet, with the Raylettes, I mean, how can Anglo-Saxon people get moved so much by something they don't even understand? So the last cut on the album is a sort of a farewell to Brother Ray. And it sounds like some piano playing taking place somewhere in the back streets of Morocco, mixed with a little bit of gospel chant.
Well, thank you for coming.
That's a great pleasure.
Really,
I'm very
pleasure's
pleased to
mine.
have been here. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll be back. Stay with us.
Right on. Great interview. Good on you, Charlie. I'm glad you didn't interrupt too much. Robert is a guy, you just got to set it up and just let him knock it down, you know what I'm saying? And let him take all the time to formulate his answers and to, he's quicker with his answers, a little quicker with his answers than, let's say, Jonesy or Page, So these guys in Led Zeppelin, you got to be a very, very, how would I say, really well-in-tuned interviewer to interview them, and to interview them well, where you can get them to express themselves. That takes a little bit of tact and skill on the part of the interviewer to do that. But if you're patient with them, they will really, really share some gold with you. Talking about, I think the favorite parts of the interviews with Led Zeppelin for me are their influences, talking about how their minds were formulated by the influences and all of the different things. Jimmy Page can go on a little bit further in it and tell you what he was actually starting to formulate. So it's really, really cool when you have a smart interviewer. You can get a lot out of these guys. If you are, a touch too overbearing with it, they're going to close down and they're not going to be as expressive. That's what I find with all of those three remaining members of Led Zeppelin. So you got to be very, very, very careful in getting them to express themselves, and you don't want to squelch that. You know what I'm saying? So good job there by Charlie Rose. I was a little bit fearful because sometimes he can be a touch overbearing in interviews, but he did good here. All right, man. Before I forget, I got a question, y'all. 2007, the O2. There were other acts involved in the O2 arena. Tribute to Ahmet Erdogan, or is it Ahmet? Who are they? Where can I find that footage of these other artists? Or were there not any other artists? I'm assuming, let me know about that. Were there other people involved in, the tribute to, I imagine there were, because there's just so much history from Atlantic. Let me know about that. It hasn't occurred to me until now, because you're just all caught up with Led Zeppelin, one of the biggest dogs in the yard. So, your focus will always be on them type of thing. But I'm sure, with so many artists and so much history with Atlantic, I would like to check out that entire rundown of artists who might have given, a shout out and a tribute to Ahmet. Because it couldn't have just been Led Zeppelin. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, great interview. Really, really good music. And about his life after Led Zeppelin, there's no way that you could even hope for a better outcome than this from the individual members themselves. And specifically Robert here, he had the ability to go off, grow, rekindle, recreate, and be able to express himself in a different way. Of course, you see shades of Led Zeppelin, you hear certain things, and your mind plays tricks on you, and you catch yourself saying, oh my gosh, in the hands of Led Zeppelin with the thunder and everything like that, this song would just be killer. It would be a killer Led Zeppelin song. I gotta stop doing that shit. I was doing that throughout the entire Triple Shot, right? But yeah, man, I appreciate the fact that he really came into his own, and he's a artist. He can stand by himself, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, I'm sure that he's got newer generations of fans, like let's say in the millennial class, who's like, yeah, I like this guy, and then only to discover later, oh yeah, this is the guy that fronted Led Zeppelin, okay. And having it all click in. And let me know if you're one of those, man. Anyway, you know what I want to do? There's a couple of things that I wanted to read, but I don't want this to go on too long. I was thinking, because I've got this link in front of me here, Last FM, there's a biography, and it's Robert Plant and Strange Sensation. But I think what I'll do is I'll skip over that, and I just want to scroll down and just read some of the comments here from this interview and see what the fans are saying. I'm sure that there's going to be different fans from different perspectives, younger, older, some who favor his solo stuff, some who favor his Led Zeppelin works. I'm just interested to hear what is being said here. So here's a Robert Plant interview with Charlie Rose discussing Robert's latest release, Mighty Rearranger. And comments. So, happy birthday, Robert, one of the most intelligent rockers out there. Okay, and it was his birthday. Robert Plant is a master interviewee. Even the pushy even the pushy, interrupting, unlistening, uninterested Charlie Rose is handled sublimely. Yeah, and he did all right. He was just sometimes right there at that moment, but he didn't go over the line of being intrusive. Love Robert Plant, great artist, terrific music, legend, and rightfully so. Thank you for posting. Lovely guy, marvelous interview. What a delightful interview Robert gave. He's brilliant, playfully funny, charming, and so kind. It's great when he shares artist songs and why he likes them. I've learned so much from his sharing. Thanks for posting this. Yeah, see? Learned so much from his sharing. If, like I said, I really dig the interview with Dan Rather. The big interview, as it's called, because that gives you an idea of what Robert could give you if you approach interviewing him right. Remember, these three guys, they came out from the times of being not very, very well respected, namely by Rolling Stone. So they're still kind of shy. They're still like that, is it the groundhog, still kind of scampering back if it sees its shadow? So if they get just one hint, one flavor of somebody being a little bit overbearing or whatever the case may be, they're not going to share with you. They're not going to open up. So it's really, really important for... you got to have a really, really good, keen interviewer to make these guys share with you. I cannot imagine Robert Plant not having anything left to say. He is brilliant and kind. He never just rested or churned out crap. He is so grounded, and yet he is so open to still learning and sharing. He continues to be honest, creative, and absolutely relevant. yeah, the variety, like he said, is a very, very big thing. And I'm glad that Led Zeppelin made it a point to keep the variety turning, even if it wasn't popular at the time. Namely, you have two terrific rock and blues albums as your debut, and then you come out with Led Zeppelin 3. I mean, that had to take a lot of things to actually decide to go that route, and they were true to their creative itch, so that was leading the charge more than anything. I mean, after Led Zeppelin 2, they're probably not the biggest band in the world at that point, but they were really one of the biggest, right? And so to just change directions rather than following the formula and being just a pawn, they went against the current and they went in a different direction. I really give them mad props for that. That's one of my favorite time in Led Zeppelin history, knowing about the direction that they took from the second album to the third. You know what? I would conduct an interview process with them just on that alone. I could ask them 100 questions just on that little part of their history. He is so grounded, and yet he's open to learning. That's what I read already. He has always had an open mind. Hey, look, he wore blouses for most of his life. Too intelligent and kind to be in politics. Yeah, he is. One of the best interviews with Robert Plant I've seen. He seems not to rate his Led Zeppelin lyrics much, but one of the best things about them for me is their poetic nature, which meant they often have a timeless quality. True. He seems to have a great perspective on everything now. Yeah, he does. An interviewer that actually lets the guest speak, listens to the responses, and expands on them. How refreshing. Yeah, he did good. He did good. He's not my favorite interviewer, but he did good here. Kit Kat says, I love his voice. All right. His singing voice or his interviewing voice? I think probably his interviewing voice. And his manner of expression and everything. A kind man who did a get well message for my ill girlfriend years ago when I delivered a parcel at Olympic Studios. Thank you, Robert. She was so surprised. Wow, nice. It's a great interview, not just about Zepp, a deeply intelligent guy who I'd love to talk to about culture and travel, maybe talking about the Cobra Gypsies in Wales. Nice, very nice. Happy birthday to the Golden God, Robert Plant, August 20th, 2020. Okay. Is it okay for me to say that I love him? He gives credit where credit is due, is sharp, articulate, and a true student of his craft. All right, man. Yeah. So this is mainly comprising of, I'm guessing, more Zeppelin fans, older fans. And I was looking for a diverse mix of fans here, thinking that perhaps, but in thinking about it now, it's not too many millennials that would sit through a 30-minute interview. That shit's just too boring, right? Anyway, hey, this was excellent, Evelyn. Thank you very much. And I totally dig why this is your favorite part of Robert's solo career. And so much going on, lots of good energy, and watching him perform with strange sensations on stage was really, really nice. You can tell when a group of people are in the jam, and they were definitely in the jam. So really, really nice, man. This is excellent. And I'm enjoying my post-Zeppelin explorations, seeing how the guys have come along after that. And of course, you're always going to have a strong connecting link to the greatness of Led Zeppelin and what it was and all. But it's nice to see that they have a life after that, and that they haven't fully retreated, and they're still got the creative flow going on. So really, really good, man. It's the best that you could have hoped for post Led Zeppelin for these three lads, especially after all they've gone through, and with losing John and some of their personal challenges in life, So yeah, man, it's a really, really great celebration of how well, especially Robert, has done. All right, so with that said, yo, I'm gonna go from one great band being Led Zeppelin to another great band being Pink Floyd. Jeffrey has a, what is it? I think it's a documentary. Maybe it might be an interview as well of Pink Floyd. So I'm going to be checking that out pretty soon in the next day or so, man. So hope you guys enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this. Evelyn, thank you again. I appreciate it. Anyway, what else do I have coming up? Is it Finesse? It's another documentary, isn't it? Oh my gosh. I'm suffering from allergies. So right now I'm sometimes I'm distracted and my memory isn't really that solid. But yeah, I got some really, really good stuff coming up where it comes to documentaries, interviews, and things that we can dissect. You know what I'm saying? It isn't just always about the song and the reaction and all of that stuff. I like the mix of a different number of things where it comes to edifying and learning about the artist and the times. I really like in this interview how they didn't talk about it too long, but the atmosphere in which Robert was in. And he confirmed that even his young 19-year-old mind, he was aware of what was going on around him. He was aware of where they were. And he knew that they were on a very, very fast-moving train as well. But I think that he was still very, very anchored and grounded because of Jimmy Page and his vision, and he was very, very confident that Jimmy knew where he was going and that he had some really, really good solid influences like Peter Grant, you know what I'm saying? So it's really, really cool to kind of get those little confirmations because you're sitting and you're listening and you're looking for certain things and it's confirming in your mind that you were right in how you were thinking about certain things. The atmosphere he was in, the creative bug that he was in, realizing that he was being influenced by the creative bug, realizing that this is a moment in time that is, and it's their moment and it's their time. And also realizing that, holy cow, this is a very, very extended period of time here, you know, because some bands like the British Invasion just have their moments where they stick their head up, get suck in a little bit of sunshine, and then they're gone again. But then he's realizing, oh my gosh, you know, through 2 years, 3 years, 4, 5 years, even beyond that. So they were very, very aware of the power of their influence and that their candle, their 15 minutes of fame was very, very extended, right? So really good interview, and it's interviews, it's documentaries and things like that that kind of confirms things like this, you know? So that's the reason why I really dig interviews. All right, I'm going to shut up. Have a good one. Take care. I'll see you later. Peace.